So how far down the rabbit hole does Russiagate go? How far up the ladder of power does it ascend? Where should we be focusing our energies? What's real, what's not? One of my my next guest, he is one of the best researchers I've ever met. He's one of my favorite people. He's an actual journalist because he pisses people off on both sides. And he is one of the best researchers into government corruption. He finds this better than anybody else, I think. Peter Schweizer is the president of the Government Accountability Institute, the author of 8 New York Times bestsellers, including the most recent, which is BloodMoney, Why the Powerful Turn a Blind Eye, While China Kills Americans. He is also the host of the Drilldown podcast and good friend. Peter, welcome to the program. Thanks for joining me.
Oh, it's great to be with you, Glenn. Thanks so much for having me.
So what to you, in reading everything from the ODNI and Tulsi, what to you is the big takeaway?
Well, I think the big takeaway is that there actually was a conspiracy in government. And I don't mean conspiracy in the sense of conspiracy theory. I mean in the actual criminal legal term conspiracy, in which you had private actors, individuals with commercial interests at stake, like George Soros, working with elected and unelected government officials, working with deep state actors in the FBI to try to shape an American election. And I think, Glenn, we have to step back and remember that this was really creating a fictitious conspiracy involving Trump and the Russians to cover up an actual conspiracy. And that was the Clinton and the Clinton team's dealings with Russia. You and I talked about this 10 years ago on your show repeatedly in 2015 and 2016. Remember, the Clinton Foundation got $145 million by helping procure the sale of Uranium One, an American uranium company, to the Russian government. We also talked about the fact that when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, she executed a very corrupt program at the State Department called Skolkovo, which was designed to help the Russians develop their own version of Silicon Valley. What could go wrong? And of course, what went wrong is that we now know that the Russians, among other things, developed their hypersonic cruise missile as a result of Clinton's Skolkovo program. And then let's also remember that John Podesta, who was her campaign chairman and advisor when she was Secretary of State, was on the board of a small energy company called Juul Energy out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. John Podesta's company received $40 million in capital investment from an investment firm called Rusnano, which is a sovereign wealth fund of Russia run by Vladimir Putin. So there was an exchange of money, there was collaboration, there were favors done with political actors, but it was the Clinton campaign. And as Jeff Gerth reported in Columbia Journalism Review a couple of years ago, they saw this issue as a key vulnerability, so they decided to flip it on its head and really say that it was Donald Trump collaborating, not them.
You know, it's amazing because I think it was Bill Clinton that taught politicians, if you just wait it out, you drag it out. You know, everybody was up in arms with Monica Lewinsky, and he kept denying, and then when it finally came out, he's like, what difference does it make? It doesn't make any difference. Nobody cared at that point. And that's exactly what they've done. They've tried to flip it on its head. And, you know, Peter, I think you and I spoke at the beginning of the impeachment thing, and my gut told me at the time, this was a phone call. There was really nothing wrong in that phone call. And look at how the teeth and the knives have come out. And when we started looking into Ukraine, we saw all of the same players, all the players that are mentioned here, all doing very corrupt things in Ukraine. And we're like, this is why. This has really nothing to do with Donald Trump. This is about getting away with. If he starts picking at all at the surface, it is such a thin veneer that they've got to stop him and keep saying that it's him that's the problem with Russia. It's him the problem with Ukraine. And it looks as though all of this has now been verified.
Yeah, no, it has, Glenn. And look, you deserve enormous credit. Other voices out there deserve enormous credit staying on this story, because what they've tried to do over the years, Donald Trump, of course, literally got shot at with bullets. But over the course of a decade, they have tried to discredit this story. Oh, the Ukraine thing is ridiculous. Oh, the Clinton corruption stuff is ridiculous. Oh, the Obama stuff is ridiculous. There's nothing to see here. And like you said, they've had this waiting game. But the problem is, some of us, including yourself, Glenn, we stuck on this story. We stayed on this story, whatever the consequence was, whatever the attacks, whatever the ridicule. And it is complete and full vindication. What we said happened. George Soros was not an invented bogeyman. You actually now have documentary evidence that his individuals, his staff members, were involved in massive election interference. And the FBI, the deep state, is actually real. Because let's remember, back in 2016, when you and I were talking about the Clintons in Russia, it was revealed by CNN that 5 FBI field offices had open investigations on the Clintons. They killed all those investigations, FBI headquarters did, at the same time that they killed actual field investigations that were initiated at the local level by FBI agents. They ginned up a fake one, saying that Donald Trump was involved in Russia, knowing that it wasn't true. So this is a massive reversal and I think real vindication for all of us who have stuck on this story so doggedly. And it shows that the truth never dies.
So I'm happy for that. I don't really care about vindication, and I know you don't either, as much as justice. And we've seen this, Peter, we've seen this over and over and over again. They come and go, all kinds of stuff. I mean, all the way back. Does this one stick? Does this one get through to the American people? And will people have to pay a price for this, including the press?
Yeah, I think the press has already paid a price. I mean, you look at the approval ratings of the mainstream press, they're lower than Congress's, which is a very, very low number. It's in the teens of approval. So the media's already damaged goods. And by the way, they're not going to get it back. The New York Times, CBS News, these entities that were so terrible on these stories, they're never going to get their reputations back. I think also if you look at the reputations of people like Barack Obama, he wanted to leave as sort of the calm elder statesman, the adult in the room. His reputation has been severely damaged. I think the real question... Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I saw a poll today that shows, I think it was like 71% of Americans think that he was involved in something illegal on this. It was an astonishing number.
Yeah, no, and people have become cynical, and rightfully so. I think where the rubber meets the road, Glenn, is the question I get asked a lot of time: is anybody going to go to jail? And that's really a two-part question. The first part of the question is, are there actually going to be prosecutions? We see this grand jury that has been launched, so that's the first important step. The second one, which I'm not as qualified to answer, is what crimes were committed? Because obviously, if you're going to charge somebody, you have to have a crime. I think clearly you have some individuals like John Brennan that appear to have lied under oath before Congress. That is actually a very serious crime. And I think if that happened, absolutely they should be prosecuted. Because otherwise, if you don't, people can figure they can lie to Congress with impunity, and we don't want that. But I think the larger question is, what can we actually do to reform these institutions like the FBI and like the CIA to make sure this doesn't happen again? Because I've known you long enough, Glenn. You're not interested in picking at old wounds. The whole purpose of exposing this is to make sure that justice is done and it doesn't happen again in the future. And I don't know if I've seen enough yet from the FBI and the Department of Justice, but they have got to clean house, and there have got to be some real reforms institutionally to make sure that the FBI doesn't feel they can wield this kind of power in the future to try to turn an election.
100% agree. They have not done enough yet. Hopefully, it's still to come. Peter, as always, thank you so much. We'll talk again.